Welcome back to Miller's Construction. On this episode, a very unique situation. This is my house, folks, and the Arkansas heat and humidity is back. And this is my portable dehumidifier, and I am so tired of emptying it 3 times a day. It's actually full right now, and it gets a little bit of water on the floor every time I try to empty it. I don't have a good spot to permanently set it up. It's in the way. I hate that thing. It works, but it's a lot of extra work having to dump it constantly. Have you been in the same situation? Have you experienced the heat and humidity coming in your house? We've got ductless mini splits. These are wonderful, but when you turn on the dehumidify mode, it will absolutely freeze you out. And it draws quite a bit more energy as well. So, to remedy that problem, I've turned to Santa Fe. This is the Santa Fe UltraMD33 in-wall dehumidifier. It's a very unique dehumidifier. Here it is out of the box, relatively small. And this is the bezel that will go over the face of it to hide it. So that's kind of nice. We're going to recess that particular dehumidifier in my wall today. We're going to take you through it step by step. There's a couple of things that you need to know. First and foremost, Santa Fe sends you just about everything you need. They do send you the drain hose. They do send you the power cord, which you can simply plug the unit into the wall, or you can hardwire it like we're going to do. They do send you a Romex connector, which is nice. They send you these special screws that are security screws if you want to use them for the bezel. So for instance, if you're in an apartment complex, something like that, you don't want the tenant to remove or be able to remove the bezel and mess with anything, you can install those on here, and all of your controls are inside that unit, so they won't be able to mess with them. But my particular home is a little bit unique. So let me run you through it. I built this home back in 2017, and it is a double stud wall assembly. So on the outside, we've got diamond coat siding. Then we've got 1/2 inch, not 7/16, but 1/2 inch zip system sheathing. And that is over a 24-inch on center 2x4 wall. Then we've got a 1-inch gap, and we've got another 2x4 wall. And it is 16 inches on center. So I've got a full 8-inch depth of cavity for my insulation. And I went with damp sprayed cellulose insulation. I really like that stuff. It's been wonderful for me. That's really all we've been installing for the most part in our wall cavities if it's a large job for 15, 20 years. It's wonderful stuff. This particular dehumidifier does mount, it recesses in the wall, but they do give you the option to partially recess it. So they make some extra trims available if you've only got a 2x4 wall on your exterior. You could alternatively dump the condensate into a drain, as long as you're doing it in an appropriate way, like dumping it into the trap. You're not burying the drain connection, so that's one thing. As far as how much moisture it will remove, it actually tells us that right in the front page of the instructions. So 17.32 pints per day if those are the conditions. So 65 degrees, 60% humidity. So these will remove a pretty good amount of humidity from the air, and it's going to work perfect for me because my entire home is being conditioned by 2 ductless mini splits. I don't have a full HVAC system where I could put a dedicated Santa Fe dehumidifier, tie that right into my ducting system. That would be the easiest option, but because I went the ductless mini split route, I don't want to install all of those HVAC ducts, if that makes sense. I've got a nice sealed lid on my ceiling. So this was the next best option for me. And I think it's a really good option for you too if you have ductless mini splits, or if you just want a simple, easy install that you could actually do yourself. I'm going to run you through it today. We're going to install this thing top to bottom, so stay tuned. So because I've got a dedicated circuit right here, this receptacle, I'm just going to tie into this circuit. I'm going to hardwire in, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that later. But the main thing is we've got our dimensions off of this particular unit, and I have found my studs on my interior wall. So 16-inch on center on my interior wall. I've already drawn a reference line here. This is the bottom of the bezel. I want to come right above that receptacle. I think that's what's going to look the best, but I also need to stay right in between those two studs. So what I did was, they give you the rough opening measurements, but I went ahead and measured anyways. They want me to cut this at about 30 1/4. They want to make that the rough opening. So I've got me a little mark up there. I'm about 30 1/4 above my bottom mark. Now all I need to do is get on that mark and make sure I'm level here. And then I just need to mark over. About right there is good. And then I got to figure out how far over to come there. But something like that. That's about right there. So now I can plunge in with my drywall router and I can just ride that 2x4 on both sides and stop when I get to those marks. And then I can cut those marks across. So that's my plan. That'll give me a perfect 14.5-inch wide opening as long as my stud or my framing's on 16-inch on center. And I've already measured in between my stud finder marks, and I believe it is. So I think we should be perfect. So the first step is going to be cutting this out. Drywall panel has been removed. There's our damp sprayed cellulose, and it looks pretty good. We're fixing to see what it looks like behind it. But first off, I just wanted to note that I did run into a butt board. So if you're not familiar with what a drywall butt board is, basically we're two boards butt together. There's no recess. A butt board creates a recess because it's beveled. And so for that reason, I had to switch to a jigsaw. That's why I didn't film that part of it. But anyways, I need to take out some of this insulation, but just enough for this particular dehumidifier to recess in there. So I've just got to take out some of this, unfortunately. It kills me. You folks have no idea how bad this kills me to do this, but it's a necessary evil for comfort. I need a dehumidifier. I should have installed one at the very beginning, but I just didn't know. So I just got to take a little of this out. This is all nice and dry. A lot of people freak out about damp sprayed cellulose. I promise you, eventually we will get to the very back where it's against the sheathing. It'll be dry as a bone. I guarantee you. A lot of people freak out about this stuff because they don't want, something that's wet in their walls. But if you install it properly and you give it the amount of time that it needs to dry before you hang drywall, you'll be in just fine shape. Now see, that's got a little bit of compressibility. So I just need to make sure though that I've got about 5.5 inches here. That would work. I figure I'll have to take a little more out. Let me measure this again. Yeah, I'm right at 5.5 inches. I'm gonna go ahead and take just a little more out here, especially up top. All right. So I just removed this cover. I just got the unit sitting in the wall, by the way. I'm ready to start focusing on my electrical connections. And so I've got to take this screw out real quick. There we are. All right, I'm just going to set that aside. Here's our electrical connections. Let me move this stuff to the side here. All right. Here we've got our wires. We've got a ground. We've got our neutral. And we've got our power, our line in. We've got a couple of different knockouts we can choose in here. So that's a good thing. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to run a wire over from this receptacle though now. We are wired up, and this is the wonderful thing about a double stud wall cavity. I didn't even have to drill a hole in this stud and try to find out if I could fish that wire through the back of the box and up through that hole. I was able to just fish it right around in between my two studs. So that's a wonderful thing. If you don't have a double stud wall like this, you probably just want to drill a hole on an angle down through that 2x and then try to fish a wire up and through it. That'd probably be your best option. But I'm wired up. I'm ready to go. The circuit is still turned off. And I've got this knocked out for the drain. I'm going through the back of the unit. We'll get to that here in a minute. And I did install the included Romex connector. It's right there at the tip of my finger. All right, I'm going to try to place the unit by myself here. It'd probably be best to have some help, but my cameraman's holding the camera, folks, so can't do that. So I'm just going to feel that Romex connector. There we go. All right, I got the wire pulled out. That was a little tough right there, doing it by yourself. All right, now, I believe I'm ready to actually mount this unit semi-permanently, but I want to make sure that not only is it level, but it's also plumb. Super important to read the instructions for this reason. Before securing the unit into place, make sure it is level or slightly forward is acceptable, but never backwards. So even 1 degree backwards is not a good thing. You want it barely forwards or perfectly plumb. And if you'll look, I've got my nice little torpedo level on, and we are just pretty much perfectly plumb down here. Check it again. Here we are. That is pretty doggone good. Check it over here. Not bad. All right, this is a really critical area for me. This is the drain. It's not running very far, but I don't see a better way to do it than this. I don't have an 1 1/8" hole saw on an extension like this. That's what I need. I've got my hole saw here, but I don't have the extension. I don't have a way to extend that deep into this cavity. So I've got an extension here. I'm going to try to go about the center of my hole here. It's in the back. There we go. I've hit sheathing right there. Now what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to put just a hair of pitch on it. And I'm going to try to stay in the center of my drain hole with this. So there's just a hair of pitch right there. That's positive. I'm going to try to even this up. Just going to watch that level as I drill this. All right, I'm through the sheathing. And I am now through the siding. All right, it's time to switch bits, and we're going to go outside. We're going to drill an 1 1/8" hole. So I did not expect this to happen. The hole came out right in the center of one of my pieces of diamond coat rigid stack, which is really awesome. That never happens, folks. So now all I have to do is make sure I'm good and level here. I want to make sure, if anything, the back of my drill's down a hair. There's my piece of diamond coat removed. There's my zip sheathing removed. And now we're ready to install our drain line. And I've got that on a nice downhill slope. So even though Santa Fe sends us a drain hose, I don't like the thought of this flexible drain hose just hanging outside the wall of my house. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run it inside a piece of 1-inch PVC pipe. All right, there we go. So there's my piece of pipe. Now, if you'll notice over here on these utilities, I used a diamond coat rigid mount. And I really like that system because if any water gets down behind your siding, this has got a flange on it and a drip cap, and this is all taped up nice and neat. The problem with it is it's very difficult to install a rigid mount after the fact. I might still do it later on down the line, but I'm going to see if I like this first before I decide to go down that road. I think for the time being, I'm just going to leave it like this. I'll caulk the hole and we'll probably call it good. All right, I've got this sitting about where I want it. I think I'm going to cut it off right here. I just don't want this dripping down the side of my house, and if I eventually want to run it out, you know, to a drain somewhere out away from my house, which I probably will pretty soon, I want a little bit of forgiveness. So I don't want it crazy tight to my house. All right, there we go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and run this through that pipe inside the house. Let's go on in. I'm going to go ahead and run. I'm just going to fish that line right out that PVC like so. The whole thing. And then what they've got here, they've got a hose clamp. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that on. And they've got this plastic barbed connection. I would have liked to have seen a hard pipe connection, like something that I could have connected this PVC directly to. But they're trying to make it a little bit easier so that anyone can do it. Which to me, PVC is pretty easy, but slipping that, I want to slip that up there. There we go. Now I can tighten up my hose clamp. I'm just going to cut this off a little bit long. Discard that. Now I'm going to try to flex that through my elbow real quick. And I'm just going to leave that elbow unglued. That way I like to do that. That way it's serviceable down the road. If I need to, I can just pull that elbow off. It's really tight right now. Now really the most important thing that I need to do is I need to caulk this to secure that pipe from twisting on me. Because I don't think there's going to be any other way to do it now that it's in there. All right, now that our drain line is hooked up, it's time to strip some wires and make our electrical connections here. It's a nice one, like so. I'm going to tuck them around that harness. There we go. We've got a green line, and it's going to actually power up the unit. We're at 60 right now. I'm going to go ahead and set the humidity level to my desired set point, which is going to be 50. That's what I'd like it to be set at. It's pretty quiet, looks good. And now all I need to do is install the diffuser and do a little touch-up painting, and we're good to go. And that is the last screw. So now we've got airflow coming out at the top, and this is the intake down at the bottom. So it's actually drawing hot, humid, moist air from the bottom and dispersing it out the top right into my ductless mini split, which is what I wanted. Air's coming out of my mini split. I think it's just going to help distribute that dry air, which is nice. And I think that's a pretty clean install too. It looks good. It's not, you know, the smallest thing in the world, but it doesn't look any different than having that mini split hanging on your wall. So if you're running mini splits in your house, in your cabin, in your spare bedroom, in your guest room, I highly recommend you look into one of these. Whoever's staying in that conditioned space is going to be so much more comfortable if the humidity is lower. Then they can set the temperature with their ductless mini split. They work hand in hand. The mini split is not going to effectively or efficiently do both. All right, so just a couple of quick statistics for you on this particular unit. In the installation manual, it tells us 17.32 pints per day at 65 degrees or 60% humidity. Now on Santa Fe's website, on the same model, it's telling us 37 pints per day or 4.6 gallons at 80 degrees and 60% relative humidity. So that's noteworthy. 260 watts of power is going to be drawn at 65 degrees, 60% relative humidity, and it only draws 2.2 amps. So I'm telling you folks, this thing just doesn't draw a lot of power. Average sound level, 45 decibels, 155 CFMs. You can barely feel this. There's not a whole lot coming out. In other words, this is my living room. It's not going to bother me a bit. There's more air coming out of this mini split than there is coming out of this particular unit, this dehumidifier. They say it'll do up to 1,200 square feet of space. Obviously, that's going to vary on the tightness of your home. All of that, you know, plays a role in it for sure. But the unit itself weighs 39 pounds. If you want more information, I'm going to tag Santa Fe and this unit below. Definitely check them out on Instagram. If you're not following them, you should be. They're always coming out with great advice and tips and install techniques on all of their dehumidifiers across the line. And there's a reason that I go with Santa Fe dehumidifiers. They are trustworthy. They have a great 6-year warranty. This one has the dual coating corrosion resistance. So it's going to last longer. They're just great. I really like the Santa Fe units. I've got one in my garage, a Compact 70. It's been fantastic for me. This is one of 2 installs. I've got another one of these to install. We'll film that one for you folks as well. I appreciate you tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please leave me a comment down below. If you haven't already, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and please hit subscribe. I've got all kinds of job site content coming all the time on this channel. And if you haven't already, follow me on Instagram as well. That's where you can get to see a little bit of a behind the scenes from what I show on YouTube. So appreciate everybody that tuned in. We'll see you on the next one.